welcome back to my channel. My name is Tina and today is another one of my makeup and murder Sundays. This is a true crime video where I also do my makeup. You're going to see a picture of the inspiration look I am using today, and this is the look that got the most votes. If you're ever interested in voting on my look for the Makeup and Murder series, check out my Facebook profile and you will see a picture go up, and then you can decide which look you think would be a great look for me to do that day because I need to plan those in advance. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about Giulia Tofana. It was kind of funny because there was a meme going around in the makeup community about this and about a woman used makeup to poison people. I thought that was fascinating, so I looked her up. That's who we're going to talk about today because I thought they really tied into the Makeup and Murder series perfectly. Giulia Tofana was known as the creator of Aqua Tufano, which was a clear, tasteless poison that was sold as makeup. This happened in about 1633 to 1651. It created quite an uproar when it was discovered because it went on for a really long time. I have already primed my eyes with my Thank Me Later eye primer. I'm going to do my eyes first this time because again, this is a pretty dark look, and some of these shadows that I'm going to be using today I haven't used very much, so I don't know how they're going to do fallout wise. So let's jump into this look and this murder. So for eye palettes, I'm going to be using my Kat Von D palette in Plum. Then I have a couple Smashbox trios. I'm just going to take the lighter shades from here, combine them together, and then sweep that all over my lid. The Aqua Tofana is the poison that she was famous for making. It became a huge thing. People like Mozart claim to have been poisoned by it. He wasn't poisoned by it, and this was like way before his time. But it was one of those things that once it became known about, it kind of became a big deal because it did kill a lot of people. It did become, something people talked about. First thing I'm doing is I'm taking that brown shade and I'm just going to put that in my crease. Aqua Tofana was a combination of arsenic, lead, and belladonna, and possibly some other plants. They don't know for sure. This was 1600 BC, so it was quite a long time ago. There's none left over for people to test, although you can find the bottles it was sold in still. So she creates this poison, and there's a lot of belief that she poisoned her own husband because she was a widow. I'm noticing that this picture has some like pinky red around it. I'm just going to take this pinker shade and sort of blend this together. So there's a lot of speculation about that, but nobody knows for sure because there was no way for them to test for this poison at the time. The sale of it went on for a really long time. It was like 20 years. Ancient Rome was a brutal place. So now I'm going to take that purple and start blending it out on this outer V. It was just a very different time in society where things went differently, and that's how come this happened to begin with. This was a time when women were basically slaves. We, had no more rights than a slave, frankly. You were sold into marriage or bartered off into marriage. You were expected to stay married, and if your husband died before you had 3 children, you were expected to marry again of your father's choosing. It was just that's the way it was. Women had no rights. So if you were stuck in a domestic violence situation, you had no recourse. Although divorce was a thing at the time, women couldn't choose to get a divorce. I suspect if they did, they left with absolutely nothing. Even though divorce was kind of one of those things that was accepted, it was still frowned upon, especially for a woman getting remarried. It really reduced your station. I'm going to take this brush. It looks really dirty, but I did put it through my color switch, and I'm just going to blend. It's entirely possible that Giulia herself was in, one of these marriages where things just were too horrendous for her to keep going. It's possible that she just liked killing people, but I don't think so. She was not really killing for profit, and she wasn't actually killing these people herself. It was more like just selling the poison that allowed these women to kill their spouses. So they say she killed 600 people. In reality, what she did was she provided the means for other people to do so. It was well known, but not well known at the same time. Women knew about it, but men did not. Just kind of interesting and very telling. To get that look that I'm seeing in the center of the lid, I'm going to take this Smashbox Trio and I'm going to use this lavender underneath, just all across my lid. I'm pretty sure that this color here is the closest thing I have to that little shade, so we're going to use it. So it's looking like I need some more purple, and I need the purple to come around a little more. So I'm just going to go back into that plum color, and I'm going to bring that further around than I did, and I'm just sort of blending it into that other purple and letting it turn into kind of a brighter shade. So those two colors together built up to a purple that's pretty close to what I'm seeing in this picture. We're going to try to get that center of the lid shade. This is not quite as shimmery as that, so I may need to go over it. I'm just going to take my flat shader brush and start packing that on the center of the lid. And now I'm going to take some Milani Make It Last, spritz my brush, and see if I can get that shine to build up. I mean, it is a pretty shade. It just doesn't have that neon-y color in the center. I will grab my magic palette from Juvia's Place. I'm just going to take this purple shimmer here and take this same brush and spray it with some more setting spray and get that really bright purple to pop it out. That takes some serious packing on to make it do it, but it is going to do it. So as I'm looking at the picture, this outer corner on this side is a lot darker than I currently have it. I'm just going to use some more of the plum in here and build that up. And now I'm going to take that lighter pinky shade and I'm just going to blend around the top of it. The real question I ask when I read this story is, why would she do this? Why would she put herself at risk to help these women to murder so many people when she didn't have to? She was wealthy enough on her own and had high enough status that she really didn't need to do this. My guess is she felt she needed to. This recipe that she had, the aqua tofana, it was passed down to her, given how popular it was and how well it worked, that even after her death, it probably was still used. It's just the kind of thing, given the time period and how easy it was to use, you kind of gotta think that that's probably what happened. I mean, she was well known as being a friend of a woman in a bad situation, and not rich women, poor women that were stuck in marriages where things were just really, really bad, and they could get very, very bad. There were no laws about things like that at the time. Spousal abuse was expected. It was normal. It was what happened. So if you were a woman and your husband was killing you and your children, there was nothing you could do about it. You had no recourse. He had every right to beat you. You were his property. Now, does that excuse murder? I've seen domestic violence. I grew up in a household where domestic violence was a total thing. I think if it's bad enough, then, and you have no way out, and your lives and your child's lives are at risk, then, it's self-defense, in my opinion. I have a feeling that that's going to piss off a few guys. Men had all the power, women had none. When you have no power, you're going to do things to try to keep yourself alive. It is an act of desperation. It's not often you're going to hear me say something like that where I think that there was some justification to this. Do I think they were all justified? Probably not. There were probably women who just wanted rid of their husband, and because this was so easy to access, this is how they did it. I'm going to use my contour and my brow power from IT Cosmetics. Now I'm going to conceal with my Wet n Wild concealer, and then I'm going to put my NYX concealer over the top of that. So how did she get caught? I mean, she had been doing this for damn near 20 years. One of the women that she sold this to poisoned her husband in his soup and got cold feet and told him about it. I suspect afterwards she wished she hadn't have done that. He promptly hauled her off to the police station, had her arrested, and then Giulia was very well loved in her community, found out that she was about to be arrested. She went to a church in a nearby area and they granted her sanctuary. She was in there for a while. Then somebody started spreading the rumor that she had poisoned the town's water supply, which was obviously false because this stuff was extremely potent, and if she had poisoned it, they'd all be dead. They broke down the door of the church and hauled her out and to jail. She didn't confess right away. They tortured her into a confession. Yeah, she confessed, but and there's a great big asterisk there. Confessions from torture, they're just not reliable. People can only take so much, and then they will say whatever you want. Just look what happened at the Salem witchcraft trials. I'm just taking that plum around the bottom, and then I'm going to use a little bit of this lavender in here to get that super purpley look. I'm going to just use this lavender for the inner corner. I'm all done with the eyeshadow. I have hooded eyes, so I can't do that full wing that they have going on in this picture. Under torture, she admits to killing 600 men, which is kind of an interesting way to put it. She, again, didn't actually poison them. She sold stuff to poison 600 men. This is my Cover FX drops, and I'm just gonna tap that on my inner corners. Poisoning was something that happened all the time. Kind of surprised that they got away with that. They got her to name other people that she sold the poison to. So she and her employees and her daughter were all killed because they had all been manufacturing this poison. They then went and they found people she named that she said knew. And some of these people claimed they didn't know that they had unknowingly poisoned their husbands or whoever. So they summarily execute like a whole bunch of women. That was just the way it was. It was a very brutal time. So this is just my Beauty for Real in Champagne. I'm gonna put on a layer of Smashbox Full Exposure Mascara, and then over it I'm gonna use my Double Decker Butter London Mascara. I want to keep this around as long as I can. I love it. After she was executed, her body was then thrown over the church walls into the church where she had been allowed to stay for sanctuary. I think you probably have a good idea of what my thoughts are on this by now. It's really hard for me to blame women for trying to make their lives better in a time where they had no options, they had no voice, they weren't allowed to vote, they weren't allowed to own property unless they had been widowed and had 3 children. They just had no ability to protect themselves. So this is one of those few times where I kind of feel they were justified in what they did. She wasn't forcing anybody to use this. She wasn't killing people. She made available a poison, but there were poisons available at that time anyways. She just made it easier because she packaged it prettily. And what's really sad is she got away with it for so long because arsenic and lead were actually ingredients that were used a lot of times in cosmetics. So I'm gonna use my Too Faced Primed and Poreless, set my look real quick, and now I'm going to use my brand new birthday present from Ulta. This is the NARS Blush in Orgasm. And to bronze this look up just a little bit, I'm gonna use my Tarte blush bronzer since it's getting warmer, like a slightly flushed look. Just a hint of warmth. More highlight today, I'm gonna use my Ofra Nikkie Tutorials highlight. I don't think that she in any way, shape, or form was like a psychopath or anything. I think that in her mind, she was helping people. Given the time and how brutal that time was, you know, she probably was. I have the Smashbox in this mauve shade. I think it really complements the blush and the eye look. That pretty much finishes up my look. To finish up this murder, I think you have where I'm going here. If it was at any other period in time other than a period where women were basically slaves and had no rights at all, were sold as chattel into marriage and could not even protect their children. If you don't understand what I mean about protecting your children, look at what they did to the Spartans. We hero worship them now, but the reality was that at 5 years old, your child was taken away from you to a brutal, brutal military school, and girls were married off into horrible marriages. It was their culture, but that doesn't mean it was right. There was lots of things wrong with cultures at that time. There's lots of things wrong with cultures today, let alone a period in time where you had no rights. I think I've been pretty consistent about my feelings on slavery and taking away people's rights. Let's say you were to do that. Then you have a standard of care that's higher, and they didn't take that care. They were using them to meet their needs, and that's all that mattered. This was a brutal time. They killed for sport and entertainment. That's what the Colosseum was all about. Do I understand where these women were coming from? Yes, I do. I'm not going to say that I think that she did anything wrong. Given the time period and the way things were at that time, I think there's something to be said for self-defense and the defense of others. She wasn't out actually killing people. She was selling the means for women who were in a very bad situation to get out of it. How she did it nowadays would be horrific, and you would not do that. But at that time, they had 0 options. This was their only option. Let me know what you thought of this edition of Makeup and Murder and my probably very controversial stance on this particular crime. I don't mind you disagreeing with me at all. I'm all for a spirited, healthy debate. I'd love to talk about it. Let me know what you thought of my look and this murder. Talk to you guys later. Bye!